The URL for the Colorado APCD portal is coapcd.norc.org. If you had a user account during testing, you can use that account and those credentials to log in today. If you don't remember your credentials, you can use the feature here at the bottom of the page called Recover an Existing Account. Once you're here, you'll be asked to provide the email address associated with your user account. You'll then receive an email with next steps. If you do have your account information, you can log in here. I'm logging in as an administrator with a test company. Once logged in, you will see a home screen with a notification section. The left-hand side of the screen contains the navigation pane and menu. And up here at the top, you'll see a place where you can manage information about your user account, or you can log out. If you click here, you can manage your account by changing your password, your username, or editing your contact details. And as I mentioned, this home screen contains notifications. Here we'll be providing up-to-date information about upcoming deadlines, important reminders, or notifications about changes we'll be making in the system. So please make sure when you log in to have a look at what might be posted here. So next I'm going to review what you can do as an administrator for your company. And one of those first things that you can do is manage users for your company. So I'm going to go to the users menu here. And as you can see, there are a number of users already created with this company. Their username, their email, their names, and a date their account was created is listed here. There's also a column where there's a yes or no indicating whether that user has actually confirmed their account and logged in. In the Actions column, you have the option to view additional information about the user, edit some user information, or remove the user. If you have people that move off of your internal project for submissions or leave your company altogether, we do ask that administrator users come in to the portal and remove those people as needed. So there's also the option to register additional users. So here at the bottom, click the button. And the first selection you need to make when adding a new user is selecting the user type. As I mentioned, I'm currently logged in as an administrator, and as an administrator I can manage users. I can also edit some information about my company that we're going to review shortly, and that's a requirement of an administrator to perform. I can view the encryption password used for encrypting files before submission, and I can also view details of validation results for our submissions. Data submitters can do almost everything the administrator can except managing users and updating company level information regarding the plans for data that you're submitting. You can select that you want the user to actually hold both roles, or you can select none. You could have a person that you just want to be able to log in, view some general information about your submissions, and have access to resources through the portal. So once you select the role, then you need to provide the person's name, email, and select a username for them. Then you click register, and that person will receive an email with their username and a temporary password to log into the portal. Administrators are also responsible for updating their company's contact information. And contacts are similar in nature as far as the information you need to provide to users, except contacts don't all necessarily have user accounts for the portal. If a new user account is created, they are automatically added to the contacts list for that company. If you have other folks in your organization that you would like to receive email notifications or updates, or just be on a general email listing for the Colorado APCD, you'll want to add them here. And again, you'll see there's we have a number of contacts already listed. We have their name, their email, and then a couple of columns indicating what type of contact they are. So the first person is a user. They could also indicate whether they want to be a general contact, a compliance contact, or a submission contact, and you can check as many of these as you'd like. The actions column allows you to view more information about that contact, edit that contact, or again, you have the ability to completely remove them. At the bottom of the page, you have an add button. So again, we just provide some basic information about the person, and then you can select what type of contact you want them to be. Whether they're general, they could be a compliance contact. You want to make sure that specific file types are being submitted by deadlines that are required by Civic. So here you can make a selection for compliance or submission. And in both categories you can select specific file types if you'd like. The submission contacts are the folks that will receive email notifications when new files are submitted or validation results are available. So once you provide all the information and select the contact type information, you just click add, and that person will then show up in the list of contacts. So next I'm going to go to the summary screen. And this is where, as an administrator, I will be responsible for making some updates here to provide some additional information. This information will be used by Civic and HSRI, as well as our potentially data users. This information will be useful as we review the quality outcomes of your data and just have some general information about the type of plan for which you're submitting data. So the first item here that's listed is just the submitter name, which includes the submitter ID. The encryption password, again, this is available to administrators and submitters. And then there's some additional fields that we want you as administrators to go in and update and edit. So you'll do so by going to the bottom of the page, selecting edit, and then these free text fields will be available for you to edit. The file type selections are not editable. This is pre-populated by information from Civic based on your onboarding process. So if you need to make a change, if you believe there needs to be a change to the file type selections, you'll need to be in touch with our help desk or with Civic to request that change. The bottom is some information about the types of coverage that you provide, and we would like you to indicate the number of covered lives for each coverage type. So once you do that, select save, and then the information is saved and you're able to view it here. So now that we've completed that information, we've obtained our encryption key, we've prepared our files, and we've submitted them via SFTP. The next step will be to log into the portal and view your listing of file submissions. So this is done in the submission screen, and this screen over time is going to accumulate a lot of information. So we've added a number of drop-down menus and filters here so that you can easily find the information you need. The first filter is a file type filter, so you can, if you want to just look at your medical files, you're able to do that. We also have a filter that looks at what we're calling the mode, whether it's a production or a test file. And there's also a status drop down that you can select from. And we'll just quickly review these statuses and what they mean. Once a file is received by through the SFTP process, we will send an email notification to the people indicated as submitter contacts, letting them know the file has been received and will be processed. And all files are guaranteed to be processed within 24 hours of receipt. Typically, it happens in less than an hour, in which we're able to process and validate the files. So, once a file is received, the first status that it will receive is queued. So it's been queued for processing or validation. Once it's queued up, it'll then quickly move to the processing status. Occasionally, we run into an issue with processing. An error occurs, and we want to be able to communicate that information back to you. So the file may have a status of error. We'll provide as much information as we can through the portal. The next status is failed, and this will be most of the time your files, when they are submitted, they will result in a failed status. This is an indication that the file has failed at least or one or more of the intake validations. And the final status here is a validation pass status. And this is the status you're trying to reach with your January 2017 files by the end of March. So we're going to, shortly we're going to go through how exactly you're going to get to that. The second row here is some drop downs so that you can indicate the start and end date for which you want to view files. And I'm going to change this to 2016 so that I can see my files. And you'll see that the information is displayed in a table. In addition to being able to filter the information above, you can also sort the columns by clicking on the column header. And the first column here is an ID, what we call the file ID. As the files come in, they're assigned a unique ID, which helps us track things within the system, and we'll also be asking you to reference this file ID number in when you're communicating with us through the help desk, and just trying to troubleshoot issues or answer questions. So try and keep in mind what file ID you're looking at. The next few columns contain information that are submitted as part of the file name. So basically, as the files come in, we're parsing out the information, displaying it here in separate columns. So there's the file type, the mode, the coverage period, the date the file was created. We also provide a date for which the file arrived via SFTP, the number of issues, the overall status of the file, and the last column includes the action column where you can view more results or cancel a file. So, as I said, what we want to achieve is a status of validation passed. So in order to do so, we need to review our validation results and then potentially resolve those validation results. And one thing I just want to note that if you have submitted test files, we are not looking for you to reach a status of validation passed. You will not be able to override validation issues. You'll merely be able to review the validation results and then work with us and Civic to determine if you're ready to submit production files. So the steps that we're going to walk through next, as far as overriding, that all pertains to production status files. Okay, so I'm going to start by taking a look at this file at the top, file 21, and we're going to look at the results. Again, we have a number of filters where we can look at the issue type or the status of a particular rule. So, right here in this file, we have just one issue, and it is structural. There are five different issue types or rule types, and three of them can be overridden. Two of them cannot. And structural issues are one type that cannot be overridden. Structural level issues occur when a file fails to meet the required format as outlined in the data submission guide. This could be from the not following the naming convention, or it could actually be the actual structure of the file. It typically prevents us from further evaluating or validating the data that have come in. And the only way to resolve a structural level failure is to correct the file format and resubmit the file. You'll see that if we wanted to look at the details of this issue and then click the override button, we get a message that this is a structural validation issue and it cannot be overridden. The only way to do so is to correct the file and resubmit. And now I'm just going to jump to another file, 3072, where we can look at an example of a failure level issue. And failure level issues, again, cannot be overridden. They need to be fixed in the file and then resubmitted. And they typically involve some intrinsic information regarding the file. So for example, this one, we need the record type to be accurate and match the file type that you've indicated through the file name. So again, I'm going to go just quickly show you that we can't override it. The only way is to correct it and resubmit it. So now I'm going to jump to another file where we can walk through exactly how to override the other types of validation issues. So I'm going to do that in, file 3071. It's a provider file, production status, and it's for the February 2016 period. So again, I'm going to click into results, and I see a number of issues have been listed here, and they all are either exemption or profile level. So first we're going to talk about exemption level. And this issue type is the most similar to the current waiver process. A submitter may request an exemption to a threshold by providing an explanation or justification to Civic. If authorized, the explanation will be maintained in the system as metadata and made available to data users. Exemptions from thresholds are typically limited to a set period of time, but exemptions can be made permanent at Civic's discretion. So the first rule that we see here, again, we have assigned unique rule IDs to all of our validation rules. And this is on MP003. We're checking the validity of the provider entity code that's provided. The issue type is exemption. The passing threshold is 99.5%. And in this file, only 16% of my records are actually passing. So the overall status of the rule is failed. I'm going to click on the details button. Again, it provides some summary level information. In addition to the percentage passing, it's telling me exactly how many records have actually failed and what the total record count being evaluated is. By clicking on the details button here, I can get a detailed look into exactly which records are failing and what the contents of that element is within that record. So this can be a useful way to really identify exactly where in your file the issue is occurring. So that information is very helpful, but when you have an extremely large file with many records that are failing, that can be difficult to wade through. So there is an additional view, a summary view, where we provide, depending on the frequency of failing records, we'll show you the top most frequently failing values. So for example, in this case, um, a failing value of y in the MP003 data element is failing a total of 4 times. So this can be a useful way to identify what is causing your file to fail, especially when the file is especially large. So now that we've examined exactly why our file is failing this particular validation rule, I've been able to evaluate it and see that I'm providing the best information within our system, and currently, but I think that maybe in 6 months from now we will have an improvement in place that such that we're able to provide better information. So what I want to do is request an override. This is exemption level again, so I'm going to need civic approval. So for the exemption level override, again, like I said, it's pretty similar in nature to the information you needed to provide for a waiver. And note that when you're providing a start and end period for your request, that it refers to the data submission or the coverage period of the data, not the date in which you're making the submissions. So this file that I'm working in was a February 2016 file, so I want to make sure that I'm covering that period of data, and then I know, like I said, I need to at least for the next 6 months. So I'm going to say that I need this override through my August 2016 data as well. Provide a reason for the override and then the planned remediation plan. It's really important here that you provide as much detail as possible. That'll reduce the amount of back and forth that may be necessary. So once you enter that information, you hit submit, and then you'll have an override history. You'll see here that the request was submitted, the status is pending, and then provides the information in the request. Once Civic has reviewed the request, they will make a decision regarding whether to accept or reject the exemption override, and they'll be able to provide some notes, and the decision date will also get recorded. Okay, so now that we've walked through the exemption process, well, actually, I should also just note that once Civic does make a decision regarding your exemption request, an email notification will be sent to those to the submitters, letting them know that a decision has been made. So now I'm going to show you what the process looks like for a profile level issue type. So here we're looking at the provider NPI field, and this rule is checking the validity of that NPI. Its profile level, the threshold is set at 99.5%, and we see that 0 records are passing. Click on details. Again, I have options for how I want to view this information. I can click on the details to see exactly which records and the contents of those records that are failing. I can also look at a summary that provides the top most frequently failing values. So after I've done that, I've determined, I really, I'm getting bad NPI information, and so I need an override. So here, because this is profile level, we request a little bit less information. We really just need you to provide a detailed explanation for why you're unable to meet the threshold for this rule. So just provide some information. And again, this information is going to be stored in the system as metadata and eventually made available to data users. Once such an override is in place, it will be applied automatically to all future submissions made until the end of the calendar year. Profile level rules generally are set up in relation to optional fields as designated in the data submission guide. Okay, so I just also want to note the final issue type. There is another issue type called ad hoc, and that is similar in nature to profile in that the type of information you need to provide. It does not require civic approval, but once such an override is in place, it will only apply to the current submission with which it's associated. All right, so I'm going to go back out to our submission history, and remember, what we're trying to achieve here is to get our file into a validation pass status. So I've gone through and I've requested overrides. For profile level issues, I've requested exemption level issues that have been approved by Civic, and now I need to just go back in and take a look at my submission history here and make sure that my file has actually reached this status of validation passed. And once that happens, you can consider this file complete for now. There will be additional QC done as we look at the data as they come in, so you may hear from us again, but the goal right now is for you to get your files into a status of validation passed by the end of March. Alright, so now I'm going to review some additional information and resources that are available here in the portal. There is a section here within the menu called Reports. Right now, both of these reports are currently under construction when you click on them, but when they are available, we will be notifying you and providing documentation on how these reports might be useful to you. There's also a section here called Guides. The first item is Validation Rules, and here you can find a full listing of all the validation rules being used to evaluate each file type, the header, the trailer, and the structural integrity of the files. So this is a good resource if you just want to take a look at exactly what we're using to evaluate the data as it comes in. The second link under Guides is the file layouts, and this is essentially just a duplication of what's in the current Data Submission Guide version 8 that we're using. You can look at each file type, the header, the trailer. Again, this is pretty much just another view, an easy to use view of the DSG within the portal. The next section is the help section. We have a user manual available that will continue to update as we proceed over the next few weeks and months. Please continue to use this as a resource. We also have a link to the current DSG, and we also have a frequently asked questions document available. Again, this will continue to be updated on a regular basis as we hear from you. The first link here is a contact us. Many of you have already been working with our help desk through testing and in preparation for the go live of the portal. We do have a new feature here. It's a contact form. We encourage you to use it because it ensures that we get all the relevant pieces of information on the first go here. So we want your name, your email, your submitter ID. You can categorize your issue, provide a description, provide references to file ID, validation rule ID, and attach a screenshot if needed. Once you submit, all the information is sent directly to the help desk. At the very bottom, we just provide the help desk contact information, email, phone number, and we are available from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday and Mountain Time. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us as you begin to work in the portal. I know that you'll all have questions regarding the functionality of the portal and the validation issue results that you're going to get with your submission. So please be in touch. We're here to help in addition to the resources available within the portal.